right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. How you feeling? Pretty good? Pretty good? All right. Awesome. Thank you all for coming early and also taking part in the reception. Hope you all enjoyed the food. There's still some leftovers, so after the reading, please feel free to help yourselves for more food and drink. My name is Ivan Salinas. I'm the programs coordinator here at Beyond Baroque. I'd like to welcome you to our space. We're a nonprofit literary arts organization founded in 1968 by George Dury Smith. This organization first began as an experimental literary magazine, which evolved into the interdisciplinary art space we know today. First having a small storefront just a few blocks away in Abbot Kinney until 1978 when the organization took residence here in the original Venice City Hall building. We are a place dedicated to the possibilities of language, supporting and nurturing writers across the country and internationally with a variety of programming, workshops, and gallery exhibitions. I'd like to acknowledge our presence on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Tongva peoples. Venice is the original home of the Wanka, Sangha, Tongva villages. We acknowledge the wrong done to indigenous peoples through colonialism and genocidal practices. And as an arts organization, we're committed to uplifting their communities, stories, and cultures. Tonight, we present Exiled Joy, a reading and conversation with authors Randa Jarrar, Ghayath Almadhoun, and Sarah Yanni. It's an honor to welcome them into the space, and it's also an honor to present this program with several co-organizers who helped us shape it and amplify the presence of our authors to audiences in Los Angeles and also throughout the world as we are live streaming this event. A huge thank you to everyone who supported us, who reshared the event on social media, who brought a friend or two tonight or half of the audience tonight as well. We see you and appreciate you, and it's thanks to you all that we packed the house tonight. And there's some seats also on this side as well if you like to join us. Likewise, I'd like to thank our Beyond Baroque team for making this event possible. Tech Master Eric Alberg in the booth and our directors Quentin Ring and Jimmy Vega. Deep gratitude to you all. Our co-sponsors for this evening are the Radius of Arab American Writers, MISNA, and the Thomas Mann House. It's been a pleasure to work with you all and hope that we can continue this cultural and literary exchange amongst arts organizations as we give space to writers and artists whose voices and perspectives deserve to be heard. Tonight we are presenting writers of Arab heritage, specifically Palestinian and Egyptian poets. Joy and Exile speak on the authors' perspectives for the evening, whether it's their own experiences on migration, the effects of displacement, or the joy felt in the small moments of life, in a new country that perhaps you didn't look for or wanted to belong to, but it's the one you end up calling home after so many years. We'll begin with readings from Ghayath, who will be reading poetry in Arabic. At the end of Ghayath's reading, we will be screening a short poetry film of his titled Evian. Then Randa will read from her memoir, and we will set up the stage for them to be in conversation with Sarah Yanni. So without further ado, I'd like to present our first author. Ghayath Almadhoun is a Palestinian poet born in Damascus, Syria, and emigrated to Sweden in 2008. Now he lives in Berlin. He has published 4 poetry collections in Arabic, and his work has been translated into dozens of languages. Ghayath Almadhoun collaborated with other poets and artists, and his poetry has been part of the work by US artist Jenny Holzer and German musician Blixa Bargel and others. His latest collection, Adrenaline, published in English by Action Books 2017, was among SPD poetry bestsellers in the US and was nominated for the 2018 Best Translated Book Award. His selected poems ranked top of the Lit Prom Best on List 2018 of Best Books Translated into German. And this is the book that we also have in store, so feel free to pick up a copy right after the reading. But please welcome Ghayath Almadhoun.
Salam. I would like to thank Beyond Baroque for this invitation, Quentin, Evian, and Jimmy. I would like to thank Sarah because she will read the English translation. Of course, I will thank my translator who did this translation in 2017. You can sit. I think we have some chairs. Yeah. So I will read in Arabic, and I wish you good luck with that. And yeah. So the sad, I got tired from this book because these poems are really old. But and I have a lot of new poems that I have the whole new book, but I will not read from it before it's got published. So yeah. And after this, I will show my last poetry film. كيف أصبحت؟ سقط حزنها من الشرفة وانكسر. أصبحت تحتاج إلى حزن جديد. حين رافقتها إلى السوق كانت أسعار الأحزان خيالية فنصحتها أن تشتري حزنا مستعملا. وجدنا حزنا في حالة جيدة غير أنه واسع قليلا. كان كما أخبرنا البائع لشاعر شاب انتحر في الصيف الماضي. أعجبها الحزن وقررنا أخذه. اختلفنا مع البائع على السعر فقال إنه سيعطينا قلقا يعود إلى الستينيات كهدية مجانية إن اشترينا الحزن. وافقنا وكنت فرحا بهذا القلق الذي لم يكن في الحسبان. أحست بفرحتي فقالت هو لك. أخذت القلق في حقيبتي ومضينا. مساء تذكرت القلق. أخرجته من الحقيبة وقلبته. لقد كان بجودة عالية وبحالة جيدة رغم نصف قرن من الاستعمال. لابد أن البائع يجهل قيمته وإلا ما كان ليعطيناه مقابل شراء حزن رديء لشاعر شاب. أكثر ما أفرحني به هو أنه قلق وجودي مشغول بحرفية عالية وفيه تفاصيل غاية في الدقة والجمال. لابد أنه يعود لمثقف موسوعي أو سجين سابق. بدأت باستعماله فأصبح الأرق رفيق أيامي وصرت من مؤيدي مباحثات السلام. توقفت عن زيارة الأقارب وازدادت كتب المذكرات في مكتبتي ولم أعد أبدي رأيا إلا ما ندر. صار الإنسان عندي أغلى من الوطن وبدأت أشعر بملل عام. أما أكثر ما لفت انتباهي هو أنني أصبحت شاعرا.
How I became. Her grief fell from the balcony and broke into pieces, so she needed a new grief. When I went with her to the market, the prices were unreal, so I advised her to buy a used grief. We found one in excellent condition, although it was a bit big. As the vendor told us, it belonged to a young poet who had killed himself the previous summer. She liked this grief, so we decided to take it. We argued with the vendor over the price, and he said he'd give us an angst dating from the 60s as a free gift if we bought the grief. We agreed, and I was happy with this unexpected angst. She sensed this and said, "It's yours." I took it and put it in my bag, and we went off. In the evening, I remembered it and took it out of the bag and examined it closely. It was high quality and in excellent condition despite half a century of use. The vendor must have been unaware of its value, otherwise he wouldn't have given it to us in exchange for buying a young poet's low-quality grief. The thing that pleased me most about it was that it was existentialist angst, meticulously crafted and containing details of extraordinary subtlety and beauty. It must have belonged to an intellectual with encyclopedic knowledge or a former prisoner. I began to use it, and insomnia became my constant companion. I became an enthusiastic supporter of peace negotiations and stopped visiting relatives. There were increasing numbers of memoirs in my bookshelves, and I no longer voiced my opinion except on rare occasions. Human beings became more precious to me than nations, and I began to feel a general ennui. But what I noticed most was that I had become a poet.
That was in Cairo 2012. I was waiting for my Slovenian translator, and she was late, so I wrote this poem. She was late 4 hours, I think. Yeah, in Cairo. This poem is from the end of 2008, beginning of 2009, when the war happened in Gaza, and there were like around 1,400 civilians got killed. 900 of them were women and children, at least 700 children. Yeah, and I wrote this text for a poetry anthology about destruction in Swedish called Ödeläggelse, and then it became poetry film. Yeah. I think at least were 100 babies got killed. نحن المتناثرين شظايا الممطرين لحما نتقدم بالاعتذار الشديد من هذا العالم المتحضر فردا فردا رجالا ونساء وأطفالا لأننا وبدون قصد منا ظهرنا في منازلهم الآمنة بلا استئذان نعتذر لانطباع أشلائنا في ذاكرتهم البيضاء كالثلج ولأننا خدشنا صورة الإنسان الطبيعي الكامل في أعينهم لأننا وبكل وقاحة قفزنا فجأة على نشرات الأخبار وصفحات الإنترنت والجرائد عاريين إلا من دمائنا وبقايا أجسادنا المتفحمة نعتذر من كل العيون التي لم تجرؤ أن تنظر في جراحنا مباشرة لكي لا تصاب بالقشعريرة ونعتذر من كل من لم يستطع إكمال وجبة العشاء بعد أن فاجأته صورنا طازجة على التلفزيون نعتذر عن الآلام التي سببناها لكل من رآنا هكذا بلا تجميل أو تقطيب أو إعادة جمع لبقايانا وقطعنا قبل أن نظهر في الشاشات ونعتذر أيضا من الجنود الإسرائيليين الذين تكلفوا عناء الضغط على الأزرار في طائراتهم ودباباتهم لتحويلنا إلى قطع نعتذر منهم على الصور البشعة التي تحولنا إليها بعد أن صوبوا قنابلهم مباشرة إلى رؤوسنا الطرية وعلى الساعات التي سيقضونها الآن في عيادات الأطباء النفسيين ليعودوا بشرا كما كانوا قبل تحويلنا إلى أشلاء مقززة تلاحقهم كلما حاولوا النوم نحن الأشياء التي رأيتموها على الشاشات والصحف والتي إن اجتهدتم في جمع بقاياها كلعبة البازل فإنكم ستفوزون بصورة واضحة لنا واضحة لدرجة أنكم لن تستطيعوا أن تفعلوا شيئا
We who are strewn about in fragments, whose flesh flies through the air like raindrops, offer our profound apologies to everyone in this civilized world, men, women, and children, because we have unintentionally appeared in their peaceful homes without asking permission. We apologize for stamping our severed body parts into their snow-white memory, because we have violated the image of the normal, whole human being in their eyes. Because we have had the impertinence to leap suddenly onto news bulletins and the pages of the internet and the press, naked except for our blood and charred remains. We apologize to all those who did not have the courage to look directly at our injuries, for fear they would be too horrified, and to those unable to finish their evening meals after they had unexpectedly seen fresh images of us on television. We apologize for the suffering we caused to all who saw us like that, unembellished, with no attempt having been made to put us back together or reassemble our remains before we appeared on their screens. We also apologize to the Israeli soldiers who took the trouble to press the buttons in their aircraft and tanks to blow us to pieces, and we are sorry for how hideous we looked after they aimed their shells and bombs straight at our soft heads, and for the hours they are now going to spend in psychiatrist clinics, trying to become human again, like they were before our transformation into repulsive body parts that pursue them whenever they try to sleep. We are the things you have seen on your screens and in the press. And if you made an effort to fit the pieces together, like a jigsaw, you would get a clear picture of us, so clear that you would be unable to do a thing.
So now I will read 3 parts. They are from very long poems. They will not give a meaning, but I will do it anyway, because I want to read this part. Hey, Randa. 5 years now.
Yeah.
Good to see you. We met in the Montalvo Art Center in 2017. It was a great night. Yes. I'm so honored to read with you. So, yeah. So this is from the poem I cannot attend. لا أستطيع الحضور فأنا مشغول بالحرب الباردة التي أخوضها يوميا مع العزلة، بالقصف العشوائي للعتم، بالاكتئاب الممنهج وغارات الوحدة التي تستهدف المطبخ، بحواجز التفتيش التي تقف بيني وبين الصيف، بالبيروقراطية بسبب فصل السلطات التشريعية والتنفيذية، بالروتين في دائرة الضريبة. لقد حدثتني طويلا عن الحرب، دعني أحدثك قليلا عن السلام الذي أنعم به هنا في الشمال. دعني أحدثك عن تدرجات لون البشرة، عن معنى ألا يعرف الناس أن يلفظوا اسمك، عن الشعر الأسود، عن الديمقراطية التي تقف دائما في صالح الأغنياء، عن التأمين الصحي الذي لا يشمل الأسنان لأنها ليست جزءا من الجسد. دعني أحدثك عن الخضار التي لا طعم لها، عن الورود التي لا رائحة لها، عن العنصرية المغلفة بابتسامة. دعني أخبرك عن الوجبات السريعة والقطارات السريعة والعلاقات السريعة، عن الإيقاع البطيء والحزن البطيء والموت البطيء.
As mentioned, this is an excerpt from I Can't Attend. I can't attend, as I'm currently busy with the Cold War I fight daily, with isolation, with indiscriminate shelling by darkness, with systematic depression, with the attacks of loneliness that target the kitchen, the checkpoints that stand between me and summer, the bureaucracy caused by the separation of the legislative and executive powers, the routine procedures of the tax department. You've talked to me at length about the war. Now let me tell you a little bit about the peace that I enjoy here in the North. Let me tell you about gradations of skin color, what it means when people don't know how to pronounce your name, about black hair, about the democracy that always favors the rich, the health insurance that doesn't cover your teeth because they aren't part of the body. Let me talk to you about the tasteless vegetables, the flowers with no smell, the racism masked by a smile. Let me tell you about the fast food, fast trains, fast relationships, slow rhythms, slow grief, slow death.
Yeah, that's a long poem describes Sweden. This I will read a small part. It's called Note 6 from long poem, maybe 3,000 words. I decided to write about the chemical attack. I lost some friends by Syrian regime attacking Damascus suburb by the sarin gas, and I began to think a lot about the chemical attack. I never forgot the children shaking after they got the VX, the sarin. And I began to think about the chemical attack, and then I find that the first chemical attack in history happened in the 22nd of April 1915 in the Flanders fields in Belgium. And then I went there on the 22nd of April 2015, in the day 100 year. I stayed 2 weeks there. I visited 170 cemetery, 600,000 grave. I literally visited them like insane person. And then I wrote this poem called Schizophrenia, where I moved from Damascus, the reality, Eber, where the attack happened in the past, Palestine, the dream, and Stockholm, where I live in that time. A long poem. I read only this part about Palestine. هامش 6. أفكر في فلسطين، البلاد التي اخترعت الله فتسببت بسفك ملايين الأرواح بسم الله، بلاد الحليب والعسل التي لا يوجد فيها لا حليب ولا عسل، البلاد المقدسة التي خضنا من أجلها حروبا مقدسة وهزمنا فيها هزائم مقدسة وهجرنا منها تهجيرا مقدسا وسكننا من أجلها في مخيمات لجوء مقدسة ومتنا من أجلها موتا مقدسا. أفكر فيها فيلاحقني صوت الشيخ الذي كلما سألته ردد سطرا من القرآن: يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تسألوا عن أشياء إن تبد لكم تسؤكم. ولا أزال أتساءل: أيهما أبعد عن الأرض، كوكب المشتري أم حل الدولتين؟ أيهما أقرب إلى روحي، جندي من بلدي أم شاعر من أعدائي؟ ما هو أسوأ شيء قام به ألفرد نوبل، الديناميت أم جائزة نوبل؟
Footnote 6. I'm thinking of Palestine, the country that invented God and caused the slaughter of millions in the name of God, the land of milk and honey, where there is no milk and no honey, the Holy Land, for whose sake we have embarked on holy wars, where we have suffered holy defeats, from which we have been displaced in a holy displacement, for whose sake we have lived in holy refugee camps and died a holy death. I'm thinking of Palestine, and am haunted by the voice of the sheikh who repeated a line from the Quran whenever I questioned him. O you who believe, don't ask about things that, if they are made clear to you, will cause you trouble. I continued to ask myself, which is further from the earth, Jupiter or the two-state solution? Which is closer to my heart, a soldier from my country or a poet from my enemy's country? What's the worst thing Alfred Nobel did? Dynamite or the Nobel Prize?
Of course, they didn't like me in the Swedish Academy so much. No, actually, it's a small society. We know each other mostly. But this is not only the joke I make about the academy. Last year, I was interviewed in Iowa City, in Iowa University, and they asked me the last question in the interview, what you wish? I say, I wish to win €1 million by lottery or by Nobel Prize. But they got used to me in Stockholm. Yeah. So the last poem I will read, I was fascinated by the blood diamond. And the blood diamond mostly ended in Antwerp, in Belgium. They clean it, they give it number before it go back to Tel Aviv. And I was always say, how could this happen in democracy? So I say, you should go there. I went there for 1 month. I spent most of my time in the diamond corner. I became friend with most of the Orthodox Jew. We eat together, we discuss everything. While I'm writing this long poem called The Capital, the Syrian people began to die by thousands in the Mediterranean. It was August 2015. And my poem switched from the blood diamond to the Syrian death. And when the Mediterranean became a predator eating the Syrians, really, in a hard way. So I will read the last part, which is related to the sea and the Syrian. تتهمينني بعدم الموضوعية في قصائدي. حسناً، لم أكن موضوعياً طوال حياتي. لقد كنت دائماً منحازاً وأكيل بمكيالين. كنت منحازاً للسود أمام العنصرية، للمقاومة أمام المحتلين، للميليشيات أمام الجيوش. كنت منحازاً للهنود الحمر أمام الرجال البيض، لليهود أمام النازيين، للفلسطينيين أمام الإسرائيليين، للمهاجرين أمام النازيين الجدد، للغجر أمام الحدود، للسكان الأصليين أمام المستعمرين، للعلم أمام الدين، للحاضر أمام الماضي، للنسوية أمام البطريركية، للنساء أمام الرجال، لك أمام النساء، لكافكا أمام الروتين، للشعر أمام الفيزياء. الفيزياء، لعنة الله على الفيزياء. لماذا يغرق المهاجرون وبعد أن يلفظوا أنفاسهم الأخيرة يطفون فوق وجه الماء؟ لماذا لا يحدث العكس؟ لماذا لا يطفو الإنسان حين يكون حياً ويغرق حين يموت؟ حسناً، فلنسمي الأشياء بمسمياتها. الكتب مقابر للقصائد، البيوت خيام إسمنتية، الكلاب ذئاب ارتضت الذل، سجادة الصلاة تذكرني ببساط الريح. أنا أغرق فيك كما يغرق السوريون في البحار. يا إلهي، انظري إلى أين أوصلتنا الحرب. حتى في أسوأ كوابيسي لم يخطر لي أنني في يوم من الأيام سوف أقول في قصيدة: أغرق فيك كما يغرق السوريون في البحار. كل قذيفة تسقط على دمشق إنما تمزق صفحة من كتاب ديكارت. حين ولدنا كانت الحياة ملونة وكانت الصور بالأسود والأبيض. اليوم أصبحت الصور ملونة وأصبحت الحياة بالأسود والأبيض.
It's a huge privilege to get to read these translations, so thanks to the Beyond Baroque team and to Ghayath for trusting me with that. Excerpts from The Capital. You accuse me of a lack of objectivity in my poems. Fine, I've never been objective in my life. I've always been biased, and I have double standards. I've been biased in favor of blacks against racism, in favor of the resistance against the occupiers, of militias against armies. I've taken the side of the Native Americans against the white men, the Jews against the Nazis, the Palestinians against the Israelis, the immigrants against the neo-Nazis, Roma against borders, original inhabitants against colonialists, science against religion, the present against the past, feminism against patriarchy, women against men, your side against other women, Kafka's side against routine, poetry's side against physics. Physics. Goddamn physics. Why do the immigrants drown then? After they've breathed their last, they float on the surface of the water. Why doesn't the opposite happen? Why don't people float when they're alive and drown when they're dead? Fine. Let's call things by their names. Books are the graveyards of poems. Houses are concrete tents. Dogs are wolves that have accepted humiliation. Prayer rugs remind me of flying carpets. My room has fallen in love with your green shoes. I drown in you as Syrians drown in the sea. Oh God, look where the war has taken us. Even in my worst nightmares, it never occurred to me that one day I would say in a poem, I drown in you as Syrians drown in the sea. Every shell that falls on Damascus is just a page torn out of Descartes' book. When we were born, life was colored, and photos were black and white. Now photos are colored, and life is black and white.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
So I will show poetry films is 8 minutes. Where is Evian? Yeah.
Pull the screen.
Yes. So I would like to thank some people. I would like to thank Benon Kalani and the Thomas Mann with Oliver and Jerry here, Fidel from the Villa Aurora, and Lynn Thompson, the laureate poet of LA. I'm so happy that you're here, and all the friends, Liat. Yeah, I see you. Of course, Paul and Barbara, Asha, and of course Rene Kotropoulos. She, by the way, she have exhibition upstairs, and some of us will end it in her place. Thank for everyone. I try to see, the light is really strong. Of course, Nigar, I can see Nigar. And, only I'm trying to say something. This film won the Best Poetry Film Prize from 2,000 films from 120 countries. I was shocked also. 2,000 films were submitted, like what an insane it in Zebra Poetry Film Festival. In shortly is like this. I was living in Amsterdam. My publisher Jorgen Mas, he called me and he say for me, listen, there is a thinker and philosopher in Holland, her name Linda Polman. She wrote a new book called Nobody Want Them, and she quoted you in the book. I said, okay. He said, no, she got your number. She will invite you to be with her on the stage in the release of her book. I said, okay. She contacted me. She told me, you know about the refugee crisis. I said, yes, of course, I'm from Syria. She told me, no. The refugee crisis happened in 1938 for the Jewish from Germany and Austria, and they call it a refugee crisis. Come, let's meet. She showed me the document about Evian conference, where 32 Western countries met in the city of Evian in France, and they decided to not accept even one refugee. And 4 months after that, the Kristallnacht happened, and then the final solution. And everyone denied that. And then she showed me what they were writing about them in the newspaper. I thought this only about Syrians. They want to steal our jobs, they want to steal our women, they are dirty, they have different value, they will not integrate, the spies and terrorists will come with them. And I read them from newspaper from France, from England. I was shocked. And then I remember that Karl Marx said that history repeats itself. And it is really was shocking. So I wrote this poem, and it made me feel relaxed, but I couldn't handle it anymore. And then I decided to make a poetry film. I began to put the things together. And then I got, I'm sorry, I'll take only 1 minute. I got a Google alert that my name was mentioned in many newspapers in Germany. I checked them, and there were a new album for the German singer Blixa Bargeld, where he mentioned my names. I translated, and he said that one of his new songs, called Tashin, he was inspired from my book in German. And I like this loop. I say, okay, he's inspired from my poetry to make song. What if I listen to the song all the time and make the film and use the song in it, and then I will be inspired from his song. So I did the poetry film. He gave me the permission. They were like this. And it's ended with with this. Can we have the light off?
في السنة الماضية، على سبيل المثال لا الحصر، توفي قارب محمل باللاجئين بسكتة قلبية. حين وصلت أول سفينة إلى مكان الاستغاثة، كان البحر الأبيض المتوسط قد غرق تماما. وجدوا الماء مختنقا، وجدوا الأمواج مبللة بالمياه، وجدوا الاتحاد الأوروبي يحاول أن يتعلق بقطعة خشب من بقايا القارب لكي ينجو. لم يجدوا الأطفال. نتائج التحقيق الأولية أشارت بشكل واضح إلى أن صور الأقمار الصناعية قد أظهرت أن القارب الغارق لم يكن يعرف السباحة. في نشرة أخبار 8 مساء، وبينما كانت مياه البحر الأبيض المتوسط تسيل بهدوء من التلفزيون إلى الأرضيات الخشبية في غرف الجلوس، مسببة ارتباكا بين العائلات السعيدة في البلاد الآمنة، ومحدثة اضطرابا من الدرجة الثانية على الأداء الجنسي للأغلبية الصامتة في وسط وشمال أوروبا، وبطريقة مباغتة تشبه نمو الفطر في الغابات تساءلت سيدة أوروبية من الطبقة الوسطى عن سبب مجيئهم عن طريق البحر وليس بالطائرة بعد حصولهم على الفيزا. لشدة البراءة البيضاء انتحر التلفزيون. في تعليقه على الحادث المأساوي قال مسؤول الاندماج في دائرة الهجرة في اتصال هاتفي: ماذا سنفعل الآن؟ لقد ماتت الشحنة الجديدة من اللاجئين الذين سينظفون خراء المتقاعدين الأوروبيين العجائز. في نشرة أخبار 8 مساء قالت مذيعة بيضاء لم تنجب أطفالا من قبل، نقلا عن متخصص بشؤون الشرق الأوسط لم يزر الشرق الأوسط من قبل: إن الأطفال ربما قد يكونوا اختفوا لأسباب ما بعد حداثية حين كانوا يلعبون الغميضة. عيسى ابن مريم كان الناجي الوحيد، وجدوه يمشي فوق وجه الماء. هامش 1: سيسرقون وظائفنا وبيوتنا، وسيغوون نساءنا، سيستحوذون على الموارد التي خصصناها للفقراء، وسيتسلل بينهم المجرمون والجواسيس. تدفقهم سيزعزع الاستقرار وسيؤدي إلى تفكك المجتمع. مظهرهم سيء وينقلون الأمراض، معاييرهم مغايرة وثقافتهم مختلفة وأخلاقهم غريبة، ولن يستطيعوا الاندماج. هامش 2: جميع الكلمات العنصرية التي وردت في هامش 1 لا تحيل إلى أزمة اللاجئين الحالية كما يسمونها، والتي يقصد بها اللاجئون السوريون لهذه الأيام، إنما استعملت على نطاق واسع من قبل وسائل الإعلام الغربية لوصف اللاجئين اليهود من ألمانيا والنمسا الذين حاولوا الفرار من النازيين في فترة ما قبل الحرب العالمية الثانية. هامش 3: في عام 1938 اجتمع 32 بلدا في مؤتمر إيفيان لمناقشة أزمة اللاجئين اليهود من ألمانيا والنمسا. رفضت الولايات المتحدة زيادة الحصة السنوية للاجئين حتى قبل بدء الاجتماع. بريطانيا صرحت إن المملكة ليست بلدا للهجرة. جميع الدول رفضت استقبالهم. بتاريخ 13 يوليو كتبت جريدة الحزب النازي نولدشر باتر بنبرة المنتصر: لا أحد يريده. لدي إحساس داخلي أن الذي كتب المقال هو أدولف هتلر شخصيا. بعد 4 شهور من نهاية المؤتمر قام النازيون بليلة الكريستال، ثم بدأوا تدريجيا بحل المشكلة اليهودية بطريقتهم الخاصة التي انتهت كما نعرف بالحل النهائي.
And we're going to continue with our next author. By the way, before move on, just want to say that I hope you enjoyed your time here in LA, Ghayath. He's here thanks to the Thomas Mann House. He's currently a fellow there. A huge shout out to the It's also happy belated birthday. We'll all sing happy birthday after the reading, and please be nice to him. Okay. Okay. Our next author is Randa Jarrar. Randa was born in Chicago in 1978. She grew up in Kuwait and Egypt and moved back to the US at 13. She is a writer and translator whose honors include the Million Writers Award, the Avery Hopwood and Jewel Hopwood Award, and the Jeffrey James Gosling Prize. She is the author of the memoir Love is an Ex-Country, the novel A Map of Home, and the collection of stories Him, Me, Muhammad Ali. She is a filmmaker and actor who has appeared in independent films and on the A24 TV shows Rami and #1 Happy Family USA. She is a recipient of a Creative Capital Award and an American Book Award, as well as awards and fellowships from the Lonan Foundation, Penn, and others. She lives in Los Angeles. Please give a warm welcome to Randa Jarrar.
Thanks, everyone. An honor to be here reading with Ghayath and just being Palestinian as fuck in the settlement known as Venice. Settled by a man named Abed Kinney, I believe. Truly, and now we shop. And it's so sad, and that's why it's funny, right? So this is my new memoir. I wrote it, I started writing it in 2015, and actually when I met you, Ghayath, I was still writing it, and I was at that residency working on something from here, so it feels really great to come full circle, something that most Palestinians never get to experience, kind of re-meeting and having something to show for it, and be alive. So here's from the intro to this paperback edition. I got my period at the Trotsky House Museum in Mexico City. The building is red. I had just seen the room in which he had been killed. My friend TG was turning 50 and had invited her friends to stay with her in an Architectural Digest centerfold type building in Cuauhtémoc in Mexico City. I arrived a few days late because only 3 weeks earlier, I had been discharged from the hospital for pneumonia. I contracted pneumonia after days of bedridden illness with something called human metapneumovirus, which sounds like a Facebook app. It's possible I got the virus from a woman I had been seeing who had come over the day I moved to a new place in East LA. She told me she had a sore throat after we'd already kissed. I had moved because my landlord, a wealthy developer, had sold my rental in Rose Hill, a secret LA neighborhood just south of Debs Park in the Northeast. The woman who bought it had never been to the area before. I watched from the indoor safety of my couch as she stood on my balcony with her realtor, who said to her, while they both faced the view I had found daily comfort in for the past 4 years, "Girl, you manifested this place!" I giggled when I heard this because white people always think they manifest things. The hills around us were the very last to be colonized in Los Angeles. The house itself had been built by indigenous women who had given birth to other women who had given birth to sons. These sons drove by once a month to look at the house and pick up their mail. They didn't all get along, so I became a kind of mediator from the balcony, and sometimes we picked lemons from the huge lemon tree in front of my bedroom. The lily that their grandmother had planted bore 3 flowers for the first time the month I was evicted. I had built a daily relationship with the crows of the neighborhood who were constant companions to my mornings. There was always one crow who kept to himself, his song sometimes clipped and sometimes manic. I had read that crows have photographic memories, and I thought of the ways these birds had the map of the neighborhood programmed into their memories and their DNA. In addition to the crows were the mourning doves who sang me to sleep and the pigeons who cooed in the attic. The new buyer was extremely concerned about the pigeons roosting in the rafters. She said she loved animals and wanted to make sure the renovations wouldn't displace any. In the book of the 1,000 Nights and a Night, the storyteller Shahrazad never finished the story because each tale links with another one endlessly. She designed things this way in order to survive. If she finished her story, her captor would behead her and find another wife or prisoner to rape and murder the next day. I like to think of all this as a metaphor for empire. If we tell the truth or remember history, or both, empire threatens our lives. Empire cannot survive if its history is told plainly and truthfully. I'm always needing to give you context and background, history, because without it, the stories I tell in this book have no context. And context is everything. The hardcover of this book came out a month after the January 6th U.S. Capitol attack. We still hadn't received COVID-19 vaccines. But fat girls I knew in Texas were the first to be vaccinated, along with the elderly. I thought briefly of driving to Texas for a shot, but then I remembered how long it had taken me to leave Texas more than a decade earlier. One of my favorite lines about leaving Texas is from John Steinbeck's Travels with Charlie, In Search of America. It goes, "Once you're in Texas, it seems to take forever to get out, and some people never make it." The order of my history is messy and nonlinear. I have to constantly go back, sideways and forward, to locate myself and my past and my present. The timelines are enmeshed and crisscrossed and knotted up. That's on Empire 2. I just want to read something. So this is just a tiny excerpt from a time that I was detained in Tel Aviv airport, which is a fake place, by a teenager, I think. And I was waiting in a room to be strip searched. My father had said in an email that by writing about sex in my novel so shamelessly, I had disregarded the legacy of my Palestinian family, which, he claimed, had defeated Napoleon. I always thought he was being really dramatic about Napoleon, but eventually I looked it up. In a book titled Rediscovering Palestine, Merchants and Peasants in Jabal Nablus, 1700 to 1900, I found the Jarrar family and I found Napoleon. The emperor's attempt to conquer Palestine had been stopped short in 1799, and an ancestor of mine named Sheikh Yusuf Jarrar, the mayor of Jenin, had written a poem in which he exhorted his fellow leaders to unite under one banner against the French forces. I'd never heard of this poet-warrior ancestor before, but I had given my son the middle name Yusuf as if by instinct. A woman wearing 7 rings on her fingers and a lot of blue eye makeup caked around her eyes emerged from a small interrogation room and asked me to join her. The woman said she liked my necklace and we spoke about jewelry for a few minutes. She swiped my passport and asked me about my parents' names again. This time I told her I was not in communication with them and that I was a writer and an American citizen. I was very naive then. She did not seem to care about this information and she spoke my grandmother's name. I hadn't heard my grandmother's name in years. She had died in the early 80s. I told the officer this and she nodded and she gave me the names of many of my ancestors. I wanted to ask her for her grandmother's name, but I gave her the name of my friend in Jerusalem instead. She plugged in my friends' names in Hebrew in her clunky computer, and their addresses came up. The program she was using looked clunky as fuck, but it held information on every citizen in Israel. At this point, things began to feel Kafkaesque. I'm just skipping ahead. You know, when I was thinking about that line in your poem, about whether my heart finds comfort or friendship more with the enemy's poets than my soldiers.
Soldier from my country or
Girl,
poet.
my soldier poets. That was just so mind-blowing to me to realize at the age of 30 that I came from this long lineage of poet warriors, and I just remember, like, I just know Steve from Brooklyn, who is stealing one of my auntie's houses, probably as we speak, just doesn't have that kind of backing to prove why he's so worthy of living on that land. So I'm just going to read a tiny little piece from further on in the book. In 1948, Israeli soldiers ransacked Palestinian homes and looted family libraries. 60,000 books and manuscripts were stolen. The 8,000 books that remain are now housed at the National Library of Israel. The other 52,000 books were burned or recycled. My father was born in 1950, and he grew up in the West Bank. Like all Palestinians, his biggest crime was his birth, and the sentence of his crime, his disappearance. The main problem with Palestinians is that they continue to exist. In 2007, the Hamas-run Ministry of Education threatened to burn a collection of Palestinian folktales because it was pornographic, quote unquote. The Palestinians protested this decision, saying the folktales were sometimes crude, but they were also a cultural treasure. They'd been transmitted orally for centuries before being written down. They needed to be preserved. The ministry swiftly revoked the decision to set the books aflame. This is kind of last minute, but I have a almost 10-minute film that I'd like to show. If that's okay, I can send you back there the Vimeo link and the password. Does that work? Yes, it's poetry, yes. It's my phone. What's that? Okay. And I'll just send it via everyone on the email list, if that's okay. Okay, I sent it. So part of how I exist as a Palestinian on this planet is through the body that I exist in, which is a femme body, a fat femme body, a disabled body that I'm very proud of, a queer body. And it's very important for me to assert my physicality wherever I go. It's part of my activism. And I just watched Barbie. I don't know how many people watch that here, but power femmes are in right now. And so this is my love letter to femmes of color and the ways that kinky communities have embraced me. I think someone in this room has sucked my titties. She's over there somewhere. Just accidentally, I walked in, I saw her. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, enjoy my film, Yes Goddess. It came out last year. It debuted at Outfest exactly a year ago. It was made completely through the labor of women, femmes, and trans people. Not a single man was involved in the making of this film. And I also made it for men to enjoy and everyone to enjoy. So not to exclude y'all, but it is a power femme moment. So enjoy this, and I'm excited to have a conversation after. After tomorrow, I will not be able to have any sex for 30 days. Please. Ramadan starts at 5 in the morning. Ramadan starts tonight. Tomorrow.
Bitch,
This is it.
since when do you do Ramadan?
Since forever. I have you know that I'm diabetic.
Look, you're doing too much right now. You got your ticket?
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna let them in.
Well, they have a ticket.
Yeah, I just didn't have my shit together in time.
No.
Please. Please.
Well,
Okay.
see, that's what happens when you have your shit together.
I know, but you know what? They're not thinking about Ramadan. Please.
Maybe
Come
something with a little
on.
more than please.
What can I do for you? What do you need me for? Whatever you want. What do you want?
Whatever.
Well,
Maybe doing a little cleaning afterwards.
okay.
Wiping down. Yes.
Fine.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
Get your ass
But
in
Ramadan
there.
starts at 5 in the morning, so.
Asumida la derrota, asumida la derrota mayor, una cosa lleva a otra. Asumida la derrota mayor, elijo lugar para cenar, botella de vino para empezar. Sé que decirlo es tan sencillo, pero cuando asumida la derrota, asumida la derrota mayor, yo quisiera metaforizarla. Asumida la derrota mayor, no paro de hablar buscando aparentar. Muero de nervios y estoy pensando que voy a acercarme en cualquier momento, que lo que está pasando es el amor. Dime que lo sientes igual que yo sé que no estoy loco, es el amor. Sigue la corriente y juguemos hoy a descubrir la primavera en el interior de tu habitación.
I'm so sick of this shit. If I could quit tomorrow, I would.
You should.
All the shit that I have to go through at work, I don't even know why I do it anymore.
Yeah, why do you do it? Like, I think you should quit.
Yeah, as
I
if
think you
could
should have quit. No, you can and you should. You should be a
Yeah,
full-time.
honestly, you should have been quit that job.
Tell
You
me
need to-
exactly how I'm about to uproot my whole life and quit, and just what.
Yeah,
exactly.
be a full-time poet. Just be a
full-time
poet
poet.
full-time, yes. Our culture is so fucked up, by the way. Like, in Arab culture, there's this thing called poetry idol.
Poetry idol?
Yeah, Arab culture has this thing called poetry idol instead of American Idol.
You're making that shit up.
It's a thing. Poetry idol. Look it up, bitch.
So what, should I ship out
Yeah.
to Poetry Idol?
Just, yeah, fuck it. Fuck it.
Do it.
Do it. Now.
Do it. Now.
Seriously.
Do it now.
You could be a warrior poet. You could, like,
You know,
move the masses.
I'll think about it after we finish this session.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi.
Oof. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
So, when was the last time you were at a play party?
Like 2019 or right before the plague. It Wasn't a play party, but election night back in November, I got waxed and had a threesome.
Okay, yes, bitch.
I asked everyone to get tested and shit, but I just needed it so bad.
That was smart. See, I need to think like you more.
Aw, you look so cute with that in your mouth. Yeah. Deeper. Act like you like it. Yeah, you love it, huh? Cute. That's perfect. That's your place, right there.
Come on, let her have it. Harder.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Let her have that shit.
You can do better.
Shut the fuck up. Oh, shut the fuck up.
Ah!
Take it.
Jesus fucking Christ. Ah! It didn't say stop.
There we go. Harder.
Okay, stop.
There we go. Okay, but look, I want to show you something. Look at my asshole. Isn't it pretty?
So like collectively we're gonna move away from like violent feudal systems, but somehow we're gonna retain the vestige of it by like having landlords just be like a chill thing. Fucking landlord basement. It's so obvious the fact. It's like
I'm trying to come. I don't want to hear all that.
Yeah, also, we're not gonna solve that tonight by complaining.
No, this is how we solve it.
Attention. Can I have everyone's attention, please?
She gives speeches at the worst time.
So annoying.
Hey, it's still her house. Watch your fucking mouth.
Thank you. I want to first start by saying thank you all for being here tonight. I want to take a moment to acknowledge what an important night this is for me. We were shut down for 19 months because I wanted to make sure that we did things right and safe. If I'm honest, I didn't think we'd have a night like this again. But we are here. We are live. And I know that this is exactly what I survived for. for this, for us.
For us.
For us.
Asumida la derrota mayor, una cosa lleva a otra. Asumida la derrota mayor, elijo lugar para cenar, botella de vino para empezar. Sé que decirlo es tan sencillo, pero cuando vámonos a Roma, o vamos a París, vámonos a Tokio, o besémonos en Berlín, a Río Chichén, Londres o Madrid. Vamos a Santiago, o quedémonos en San.
I make that juice box pop, pop, pop. I make that juice box pop. Virgo, make your juice box pop, pop, pop. I make that juice box pop. Virgo, make your juice box pop, pop, pop. I make that juice box pop. Virgo, make your juice box pop, pop, pop. I make that juice box pop. Dick in the hips, know you see me, right? I know it hurt to see a bitch getting all this life. I can smell your hoes hating from a different side. Big body Buick with them stankies, right? See, he like them real thick, he a certain size. Face down, ass up, leave them curtains wide. He wanna take a little trip, wanna take a flight. Big body bins, then we skirtin', right? I might let him get a whiff of cologne and tie and put him out for the count like a Tyson fight. You heard me, a full course wanna take.
Oh, yeah.
It was about 2 minutes. In the meantime, feel free to take a bathroom break or grab a drink from the patio. I'm gonna welcome you guys to the stage, okay? Yeah, let me just say a little bit, just a few words. All right, folks, we're gonna get started with the conversation. All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around for this conversation. Please let's give a round of applause to Randa Jarrar and her very wonderful film. Yeah, that was a wonderful film you did for us. You showed us.
Come sit now?
Sure thing, and I'm sitting on your spot, by the way.
No, it's all good.
Okay, are
Yeah.
you good on this end?
Yeah.
I'll
just come sit.
Just want to introduce our moderator for the conversation, and she also read Ghayath's English translations earlier. But Sarah Yanni is a Mexican-Egyptian writer and editor, a Best of the Net nominee. She is the author of the chapbook Ternura, and has been recognized as a finalist for Bomb Magazine's poetry contest, the Andres Montoya Letras Latinas Poetry Prize, and others. She currently serves as the managing editor of the Quarterless Review and poetry editor for The Dry River. So she will be moderating a little conversation with our authors, Randa and Ghayath. Please welcome them to the stage.
All right.
I'm so happy that not all the people left because we are really late and take time, but I'm glad. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks again to Beyond Baroque and for the two of you for sharing the space with me, and to all of the program sponsors and partners that made tonight possible. Most of my questions are for the two of you. We'll just chat. We'll just chat together. But I do kind of want to kick it off with a quote from Ghayath, which I read from you in an interview that you did a couple years ago, where you say, "Poetry will not change the world, but it can change people, who in their turn, perhaps, hopefully, will be able to change the world." So tonight's program is about joy and exile, and I think it's easy to fall into two extremes. For one, writing has the capacity to enact great change and bring joy and repair us in this fundamental way. And then on the other hand, there's the viewpoint of writing and I think art in general as being things that are divorced from change making. They're useless compared to policy or other, more direct advocacy and so on. But Ghayath, your quote, I think, really gets at something important, and that's this notion of a ripple effect or kind of a commingling of the individual and the collective. And I'd just like to hear from both of you as writers, kind of starting off with a point of view of writers. What is your relationship to writing and literature right now, and how do you see the role of writing in kind of the larger social sphere?
It's interesting because we're all always writing now. And I'm very tickled by the idea that we are post-reading, that reading is over. There's a reading crisis. Just because men aren't reading anymore doesn't mean reading is in crisis. More women are reading now, and that's, I think stressful to the status quo. But I've been writing, most artists just keep making their art, right? And so I've been writing to make sense of a very strange world that we live in my whole life. So I really enjoy documenting and seeing things the way they really are.
Yeah, I remember I make reading in 2010 I was invited to Stockholm International Poetry Festival, and the youth of the Nazi party in Sweden, originally Nazi party, but now it's considered to be only right wings, the Sveriges Demokrat, the youth of them, they make reading outside the Dramaten where we will read against us, because I was a foreigner and there's another poet. So they read the great poetry, and that made me think about poetry a lot. Like when you are alive and write poetry, the right wings really hate you. Everyone, mostly in the right side, hate poetry. But 200 years after death, you became very important, and they think all of them, they know the great poetry of 200 years. So I was so worried, what would happen after my death in 200 years? It's the right wings and nationals will read my poetry? Yeah, because it is really if you think about it. Yeah, so I began to rethink about writing. I always enjoy poetry, but in the same time, all kind of art, I didn't distinguish them from class and gender and colonialism history and the background of our hierarchy and like this. There is no way to have a poem not political. No way. And if you find it, and you will find most of the poetry that is not political because somebody cleaned it. And they clean it in a good way, and with the time they became professional cleaner with editing. They began to clean it here before they put it in the poems. And if you see the poems published in the New Yorker every week, I was in discussion several times with other fellows in the Tunis Manal. So clean. They are somebody cleaned them. Anyway, I want to add something that doesn't mean that my work is political. No, I always say, no, my work is not political. This is my life. I write about my life. I reflect my memories. So if my work is political, then the Swedish poetry about nature is political because they reflect their memories and I reflect my memories. I'm a Palestinian and I'm Syrian. What I should reflect? I should speak about spring, or you understand me. So I'm not against the political things, but that one about changing the world is also romantic little, but it's true because art is one of the most things that change us. I really like when you began to have this very poetic metaphor when you have your period in the Trotsky like this and the building was red and you are in the room, he got killed and his blood, all this imagination. Yeah, this is really political.
Yeah, but I mean, everything is.
Exactly.
You can't, being apolitical is a political position. George Orwell told us that, and Frantz Fanon has shown us that. I think that, you would write about spring. You would write about the blossoms of the almond trees if you could just hang out in Palestine, smoke weed under a tree and chillax. Yeah. But you can't because, colonialism, empire.
I'm I'm lucky.
Germany, really.
I'm a Swedish citizen. And until now, I visited Palestine 5 times. I never spoke with my father about it. Never. I can't. He's displaced from Ashkelon to Gaza. When he became 19, they arrested him, threw him in Egypt in 1967, so twice. And my grandfather stayed alone until she died. He was in Syria. And then I became Swedish citizen and I visited the country 5 times. So it's have 3 levels. The happiness, because it's right of return. And the sadness, because it's not the right of return. I'm going to Ben Gurion, to Israel, and they will let me in. And the guilt, because I was able, and 15 million Palestinians are not allowed if they are not there already. So the guilt, and I don't know how to handle this. So me and father speak, and we try to speak about everything, but not mentioning Palestine. It's really problematic. He didn't see his mother from the moment they throw him in 1967. It's there, yeah. So you know how it is, but yeah, it's the result of occupation.
Yeah, I think guilt is a really strong emotion for, you know, children of immigrants, of migrants. I did a long research project with a close friend of mine. We were both tracing family lineages, and we've done all these presentations on that project at different conferences and whatnot. And we always say this whole fancy thing and give the whole PowerPoint, and at the end we're just like, oh, this project is about guilt. That's just what it's about at the end of the day. It's guilt and love. We always say those two things. Well, it's interesting you brought up that exact quote, "This is not politics, this is my life," that you said, because I was going to ask you about that. But you've spoken a bit about kind of that outside classification of this is political versus this is not, and you're like, I don't choose to be the person I am and have these experiences. I was going to ask Randa, I don't know if your thinking has changed or what your thinking is. I'm sure people automatically label your writing in certain ways, or I think people label anything that is queer or feminist, oh, this is all political. Kind of what's your relationship to that? The boxes you're put in, maybe it works for you. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
I think I used to care about that until like literal Nazis showed up to my classroom. And then I was just like, look, the very fact of my existence is a problem. And I'm probably the softest Palestinian there is. Like, I haven't dealt with, Israeli bullshit nonstop every single day, the way that my cousins have. So the fact that even I, someone who's light-skinned, very femme, can pose these kinds of issues where I just tweeted something and got, thousands of death threats at work, and people are just like really freaked out by the truth and very fragile about the truth of the crimes that this country has committed and continues to commit. I just read that there are migrants on the border right now that are being held in cages in like severe heat. So there are things that, what can we do in this room to also, aid in or be useful to people who are in need? Like, do we just talk about it or tweet about it? You do have an opportunity today to help two Palestinians in very material ways, which is by reading our books, buying our books and letting your friends know about our work and our books.
Excellent writers, really. I'm not because I'm serious, not because I'm Palestinian, but seriously, we are somehow denied in a way. We are really very talented. Not me, but like the people I know, they are really good writers, but they don't got the chance because our enemies are strong also, I want to say something. I like so much when you say about the film, it's poetry film, and it's appear that it's poetry film.
Yeah, it is. It's soul poetry.
Yeah, so I agree that
this is what happens if you're really strict with your daughters.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
But I really agree it's a poetry film because not only poetry, because the people say, oh, this novel is poetic, or this.
Right.
No, it's poetry.
Poetry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I am going to continue the practice of quoting you guys back to yourselves. One more time, I'm thinking about the title of tonight's program, Joy in Exile. And, you're both writers who have written a lot about movement and migration and home. And Randa, you have this passage in your book about the idea of the original wound, and I just want to preface the question with reading those few short lines because they really struck me, and I keep thinking about them. In your book, you write, in the memoir that you just read from, I think about wars, and I think of the original wound. I think about how I can never tell anyone what my hometown is because I don't have a hometown. I think about how I'm not from anywhere. I think about history, and I distill my thoughts and focus on that wound, that first loss. I think about Palestine. I think about acres of land being stolen, trees uprooted. So I'd love to hear from you both how the sense of exile or placelessness has defined you and your work. What does it mean to write from a place of woundedness? Big question.
Yeah. So I inherited an exile, but it was really weird exile because like most of the Palestinians inherited. So we began to understand why we are Palestinian, why our class, like the other students are Syrian, why this is not our flag. It's so difficult to tell the children. My father was suffering. And then he mentioned one day, like, yes, we pay our land as a solution for the killing of the Jewish in Europe. Simply like that. But why they kill the Jewish? They didn't kill the Jewish. They killed the Ashkenazi Jewish. And then he says something like the Sephardic and Mizrahi were not killed. Only the European, and killed only the European Jewish. And then they come to land. But I didn't got it. It take time from me to begin to understand. And we're not supposed to know the European history because the European didn't know anything about history, our history. Take a lot of time until understand, but that make me angry more. Because why I should pay my land? Germany should give the land because they killed them. Russia. Why the Palestinians should have solved this problem? Yeah, because the God gave them the land. And that is make it more funny even, because all the Zionist movement was a secular movement. None of them believe in God. Not from Theodor Herzl, none of them believe in God. But they say it's the promised land. Anyway, it's a long story. So it was this exile and I inherited. It was very foggy. And then I choose my exile to go to Sweden because I can't handle the dictatorship in Syria. So the differences between two exiles is huge. One you inherit from your father and one you choose to do. But in this double exile, I find that there is a joy, especially in the second one, which is related to literature, to be the outsider and to be the foreigner who observes the things and see the things from different angle. He will not be able to participate always. Like if some four people play card and he's around the table, he could see all the cards, but he's not playing in a way. It's like in the moment you want to play, they say for you, go back to your homeland. And I noticed that in Syria they call me the Palestinian Swedish. And in Palestine they call me the Swedish Syrian. And in Sweden they call me the Palestinian Syrian. And everyone throw you, because even if I go to Syria now, I'm a foreigner. So I'm not part of Syria, not part of Sweden, and I will be in the parallel. And this is very important for poetry. And this is exactly somehow what I'm doing now, even during this my stay in Thomas Mann House, to write about the parallel, because the European and the Western culture, they enjoyed the exile so much, especially in the Nazi time. Everyone was like Brecht, Hannah Arendt, everyone was running away. And you know how much exile is important for, and suddenly the wars ended and no exile. So the United States of America invented this scholarship and they began to exchange writers. I swear in God, if there's no war, if there's war, no scholarship anymore. But the mess of exile, the lack of exile in the Western culture, let them invented these things. Why am I in Thomas Mann House? Because there's no wars. They want writers to go to the exile to see the things from different angles. So I think the exile play a big role in literature and the way of being under threat. Like if you think about what his name, Osamaria Graf, when the Nazi burned all the books and he wake in the morning and read the books and he find that his book was not burned. He was so angry. Like, yeah, of course he wrote an article, then they burned. So sometimes you need it. Like, the Nazi didn't burn my book. I'm a bad person. Yeah, so you understand me. You need to be involved in this.
Now we have book bans. They don't burn the books. They just ban them.
Before 2 days, they burn the Quran in Sweden. They still have this culture
They do
of
that.
burning.
That's like TGIF.
Put it
that's
in
like
the
happy hour. Yeah, burning. Yeah, it's just it's just the oldest trick in the book. Yeah.
I would like to ask a very, I think, simple question as a little in-between moment. Again, hearkening back to tonight's title about joy, and in your day-to-day writing practice, teaching practice, research practice, what brings you joy in your day-to-day?
Knowing that Palestinians will always exist forever. Knowing that we continue to shit on them and their superiority complex. Knowing that I'm from a town like Jenin, which is full of fighters. Knowing that resisting by any means necessary is the right of every oppressed people. I take joy in my friends who are righteous Jews who stand up for Palestinians. I take joy in my girlfriend and our dogs. I take joy in just also knowing that the white population in America is declining, that by 2040 now, it used to be 2050, less than 50% of the US will be white. I take joy.
What we will do now for that?
I take joy in knowing that time goes by, you know. And I know that being a majority does not equal having power. Obviously, like you've lived in Syria, you know that's just not true. But yeah, I refuse to think that we're doomed, even though I mean, in many ways we are, as a people generally. But it feels good to come from fighters and to be what, you know, I don't know. My mom is Egyptian, so it would be like a gada, like a tough
Yeah, I saw
person.
Kalthum on your hand.
Yeah. Just being tough and celebrating my femininity, which is something that we are all taught to crush inside ourselves, no matter what our gender is, and resisting that. The joy of knowing that I raised a kid who would never hit a woman, and who doesn't consider himself cisgender. Very proud of that one. And yeah, just joy in pushing the queer, trans, Palestinian POC agenda. You know, supposedly that's what we're doing, right? Like the right is so incensed by just our existence means we're pushing an agenda. But you know, I grew up seeing straight white people kissing in movies constantly. That was being shoved down my throat too. So, yeah, and joy, you know, I do consider myself Muslim, so joy in knowing that I have a relationship with the divine that other people just have no business in. And joy in knowing that I do not carry any shame, that, you know, I was taught for generations by maybe, you know, because of the French, because of the English, to hate my body and my gender and my people, and I refuse to do any of that. And every single day, I choose not to do that, and I choose to love us. And yeah, I will not buy it that I'm ugly. I will not buy it that I'm imperfect, because none of us is. And I am just really looking forward to all of us just waking up and being so fucking pissed and full of love and rage that we just rip this shit to shreds, because our planet is fucked and we're all fucked. And I'm just excited because it has to happen. And I'm seeing it in my communities. I'm seeing people change. People who thought that they were right think a little more left, and just live. I live in the joy of fighting for everyone's right to bodily autonomy and a place on which to place their foot and to rest themselves, as everyone's right should be.
Brilliant answer.
The joy.
Yeah, what's your joys?
Oh, a lot.
Kind of
So,
hard to-
in general, I really enjoy writing. If I can connect the word enjoy to joy,
Mhm.
I really enjoy writing, and I feel, and the creative things in general is the only time you do the job of the God, where you begin to create things. But my joy inside the writing is the destruction. When you write the text, the first version text, and you leave it, and then you come back to it. When I come back to the text, I do two things. Some part of the work I call it deleting, and the other one I call it erasing. Erase and delete. So the delete, when you read the text after a while, you forgot it totally, and you first impression you got shocked. Oh, what is this? And then you began to work on it. You began to make a copy paste, put upside down. I'm a believer on the editing process, and then you make the delete. You take this part and put it in another file. It could be another poem, or you take this part and put it in another poem. It's already exists because your mind is working with other 10 poems in the same time. This is the deleting, and then the joyful part. The erase, that's the destruction. You delete something and it's not exist anymore. There is no way, there is no copy paste like. And this is, I like it so much, especially because, all the people who are laughing now, they know how joyful is the destruction part. So this is the joy of the writing, but the joy of life. I love the life so much. I love food, traveling, meeting people. Benon Kalani, good friends, Renee and Jana, Caroline and Andrew, like I build like Fredel and Asha. So like this is the joy to know, to good to meet the people from this 8 billion who exist. You choose like 10, and our work is joyful. I remember when I read the Quran the first time, and I finish it all for the first time, and I read the surah of the poets, Surah Al-Shu'ara. We have a section for the poets, and in the end of it, it says, أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّهُمْ فِي كُلِّ وَادٍ يَهِيمُونَ. Don't you see they are traveling everywhere? I say, okay, I will be a poet. Because I was paperless. I was not able to travel. And everyone can travel because most of them Syrian or Palestinian Syrian who came in 1948. We came in 1967 and we don't have any document. So at that moment I say, okay, if the God say we are travelers, so I will do it. And guess what? The God was right. We are real travelers. Yeah, I don't know, at least with following the festivals. Yeah.
Amazing. I have just two more questions for you both, and then of course if you have any questions for each other, feel free as well. But one thing I'm thinking a lot about is invisibility versus hypervisibility. Randa, you have this great line in your work: to be Arab in America is to be a mouse unwillingly dunked into a paint pot of invisibility ink. And I think, especially in the US, Arab people kind of being lumped into white, but then many times not when it's convenient for a media narrative or to find a scapegoat. The fact of someone's Arab identity or Muslim identity suddenly becomes very important. And you are both people, you live here in the States, you're living and working in Europe for the most part. Just a broad question, I wonder if you could speak on this feeling of invisibility versus hypervisibility, if you have any thoughts on that, if you have any, how that's affected you, or, yeah.
Yeah, I think that Arabs fought to be counted as white back in the day. A lot of them were actually Syrians, Lebanese, and some Palestinians that came in the early 19th century.
1910,
I think
they called
earlier,
them the Turco.
even earlier, yeah. But they called themselves Syrian, and then because of the China Exclusion Act, they fought really hard to be counted as white. So they were suddenly visible as not white, and whiteness, as we all know, is fake. It's not real. It's just an invention. It just stands for property or whatever, right? Power. And so they fought to like be invisible again and to just pass in order to get papers. It was actually in America their way of gaining citizenship and othering themselves, and separating themselves from other Asians, even though most of them were West Asians. It's really interesting. Like, this fight happens in America all the time, right? It happened just recently with the affirmative action case in the Supreme Court. So there are some people of color who, you know, are just like, oh yeah, we can count as something else, or just like this kind of divisive way that we're all taught to kind of invisibilize ourselves into whiteness, or it's just a fantasy, right? To just survive or whatever. But now I think a lot of Arabs are trying to count as Arab, or at least as either Middle Eastern, North African, West Asian, MENA, whatever, SWANA, whatever thing you want to call it. I think the more detailed we are about where we're from, the better. We have that privilege of saying, I'm Egyptian, Palestinian. It doesn't matter how long it is. White people will be like, I'm German, Russian, Polish, French, and a teensy bit of Native American. Like, they will do it. They will go for it. So just be specific. And but for me, obviously, I'm a hyper-visible femme because I choose to be hyper-visible, to take up space. And it's a pleasure and a curse. It's fun to wake up to someone copy-pasting like my face to a Jabba the Hutt meme, just because they see me and they're like, this is how we see you. But it's also fun to kind of be somewhere where nobody assumes that I'm a person of color and they say some really fucked up shit. And as a writer, I get to record that. I get to bear witness to that. And I get to talk shit to them and leave and scare them. It's nice being big. People get scared sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah. I remember all the moment where people were not able to mention that I'm a Palestinian, even if they were good people, but they were scared to offend somebody in the room. I remember all the time where people tried to say that I'm a Syrian and jump from the Palestinian. I discovered when I got the DAD, consular program residency, and moved to Berlin, that I was doing for 10 years interviewed. I was interviewed for the radio and newspaper and literary magazine. And I speak a lot about my family in Palestine and how they thrown twice. And then I say about all my family in Syria and the revolution. And after I moved, and my friend Rasha, she say, I read all your interviews and saw all the interviews in Germany. Why you speak only about Syria? And why you only mention that you are Syrian? I say, me? No, I make like 30, 40 interviews. I say all the story about Palestine and about Syria. She told me no. I say yes. She told me come. She opened and showed me. Systematically for 12 years, none of the organization is connected to the other. They deleted totally everything I say about Palestine. And they say the Syrian poet, Ghayath Almadhoun, and they told the story.
They cleaned it.
For 12 years, none of them connected to the other. Censorship. I was censorship for 12 years in Germany. Censorship. And I didn't say anything anti-Semitic or anti-Israel. I was telling about my story, that I'm a Palestinian. Deleted. And I was shocked. So this is to be visible and invisible and all these things is really problematic. I know good friends who love me. They sometimes introduce me to friends they were not able to say that I'm a Palestinian, especially in a country like Germany, where the guilt and shame eating the people and they don't know how to handle it. And they throw it on us instead of throw it on their parents who killed the Jewish. And I know how difficult their situation, So I always say I will give the Germans another 25 years so they could handle it. Seriously, because I love them. They are nice people and good friends, but it's very problematic question and they don't know how to handle it. So it is, so you need to not lose your friends and these great souls who are stuck on this big lake of blood. But in the same time, you should save your dignity as a human and as a writer and as a Palestinian who never saw his grandmother, who was a rich lady with big land and found herself in a tent. And then in 1967, her children taken from her and she stayed alone until her death in a poor tent. And there's a family from Poland live in our grandfather's house in Ashkelon. And we have land from Ashkelon to Ashdod. It's like millions of dollars. And I grow in refugee camp. So I can't deny the sufferness of my family. So it's a mix of things. Of course, it's visible, the pain of the Palestinian. And the world is denial, of course. No one can deny that. But the world is functioned by money and power and all this bullshit. I only want to say one word. Fuck history. Yeah.
I'm almost tempted to end on that, but I do have one more question for both of you. And it's just talking about what's going on right now. Ghayath, I'd love to hear a little bit about the project you're doing with Thomas Mann House. And then Randa, just what are you working on? What's up with you right now? So
yeah, my project is so simple, to finish my 5th book. And I thought the Thomas Mann House will give me very important 3 things in one bucket. When I read the application of Thomas Mann House, I was seeing my name. Like they say, I see it like this. We ask Ghayath Almadhoun to come like this. Like. So the project is about the exile. And I began to think about it. Thomas Mann, he ran away from Germany. And then the war happened. I ran away from Syria from dictatorship also. And then the war happened. And then both of us, we will be in the exile, but that is not important. I will be in his room in that exile where he wrote Dr. Faust and like this. And that's the other hidden secret, that California and Syria are a replica. So Syria looked to the sea from the west and California looked to the sea from the west. San Francisco, Aleppo in the same line. And LA and Damascus in the line 32 on the same line. Let's go from LA to south of Spain, to Sicily, to Cyprus, to Beirut, Damascus. So it's the same weather. You have the mountain of Lebanon and the Alaut mountain, and then you go down Damascus, and then Nevada, Palmyra, and then you have the Death Sea in Palestine and the Death Valley here, both of them the first deepest and the second deepest. And I say, every time I come to California, I feel that it's the place where I can remember Syria, because I can't go to Syria because of dictatorship, but I got the same. So all these things together with this great place, which is now so sad. I'm leaving next week, but I postponed another 1 week.
Good job.
And I think my next book, as I told Benno, it will be like, do you believe in life after Thomas Mann House? Seriously, like, it's what a luxury life. And but everything has an end, and I will go back to the old continent. Oh, yeah.
Do you remember Arabesques by Anton Chames?
Yes, of course.
He writes a lot about his residency in Iowa, and it's really great to revisit.
Of course.
Yeah. I am working on several projects. One is I play the voice of the grandma in the new Rami Youssef cartoon that will be about a Muslim family post 9/11 in America. Really looking forward to that. Should be coming out next year. I'm writing 2 things. One is an instruction manual on how to raise a child alone that is comic and has titles like What to Do When You Come Home and Find a Pile of Cocaine on a Library Book on a Dining Room Chair in Your Bathroom. There's so many problems there. And also a novel that is basically a queer Palestinian chick lit novel about a famous Palestinian writer and her translator best friend, 2 queer Palestinian women on a trip to Berlin to promote the famous one's new novel and the shenanigans that ensue, including the accidental murder of a white supremacist woman, kind of like a female version of Tucker Carlson, and some kleptomania that happens thanks to the teenage daughter of one of the women at the Gate of Babylon. The funniest thing that ever happened to me at a reading was I was in Berlin at the Pergamon, I guess, museum, where they have like a giant, like the Gate of Babylon, they have it restructured there. And there were just like rows of just incensed, just angry Germans. And they were just like, how does America deal with George W. Bush and what he's done to Iraq? And I'm just like, you have stolen the gate. The fucking Gate of Ishtar is stolen and replicated here inside a museum that you charge people for. You are thieves. You are just thieves. They're like, but why are Muslim women so angry? They're always like, how do you know they're angry? They're like, they're always scour their face. I'm like, look at your faces. Like every German woman I know is like, just pissed, hungry, angry at her parents as. Ghayath, you need better friends. Your friends need to like fight for you. They need to say, this is my fucking awesome ass Palestinian poet friend who's a genius.
They do.
That's how they need to introduce you.
They do. The problem is like how to fight in a country like Germany. This is important question because in the moment, like last year, Deutsche Welle, they fired 10 Arabs because they make like on Facebook 10 years ago in a peaceful demonstration.
Yeah.
They make like, they fire them totally. So you should know how, like, you can't handle it.
I mean, that's an upgrade from prison.
You could be anti-Semitic. If you say I'm Jewish, you are self-hater. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They have an answer for everything. So you should think about this intellectual with all this power behind them and like this. So you should help them. I give them the 25 years only to handle their shit. But in Sweden have embassy, recognize Palestine as a country, and they have embassy. Yeah. So you should be like, you should take care of your friends because they take care of you. They don't know how to handle this.
But we have to remember, I think it's important to remember black feminists and people like Toni Morrison who said, that basically the function of whiteness and racism is to distract you, and that really what white people need to do is fix each other. Like they're the problem. They need to work on each other somewhere else.
Yes,
like,
I agree.
Yeah,
but
Germans need to...
I see always the things from different angles. Also, we have our own problems and we should...
we totally should, but it would be so nice to just have the moment to be free to be able to talk about those problems, but, none of us is free, right? So how can we have whatever,
I agree with you 100%. And what Toni Morrison say, I read it before, is really interesting. But I always see that the humans are able to change. And because that you quoted me, that poetry are able to change some people who will change the future for our children. Because it's happened to me. A poem changed me when I was 17, and I saw the effect of the poetry on. I have an army of readers, really. Like we are in the end 22 countries and 475 million, and I write for them. Any translation for me is a bonus. In the end, I'm Arabic poet writing for, and I have army of readers, and I see the effects on words of them, and I know that the effect will happen. And no one can hide reality. No one can hide history. It's clear that there's occupation in Palestine. It's clear that the God didn't give this land to... No God sell lands in this... No God say to... It's clear. No one can change this. We are 15 million. We are alive and we are not victims. This is the most important thing. We are very proud people and like this. We will change it. History is in our side. We occupy Spain 800 years and we lose it because we were occupier. They can stay 1,000, 2,000 years. We will got Palestine back. And if they didn't forget Palestine in 2,000 years, they want us to forget it in 8 years? We have the same DNA. We came from Abraham. We have the same mentality. We will not forget it. I'm thinking about time. I enjoy my life. I'm not a victim. My children, maybe they will not go to Palestine. Their children will get it back. But we will not throw anyone in the sea. They will be Palestinian citizens. We will not do to them what they did to us. That's it. I'm very relaxed.
I love your relaxation.
Thank you both so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Okay, yes.
Thank you both.
Thanks. Thank you. You're like, I am relaxed.
I'm relaxed.
I think that's it. Yvonne,
Thanks, all.
any last announcements? Thank you everybody for coming.